evening, folks. This is Dr. Freedom, and this is your second edition of Across the Continuum. Now, as you all know, I've been trying to expand a little bit beyond Doctor Who news because, frankly, I'm getting tired of having nothing to talk about when Doctor Who's not on. This is not one of them channels where we're going to go on for weeks and months and years about episodes that haven't aired in over a year and how they somehow deflated our testicles. We're going to talk about other things going on out there in the sci-fi universe, pretty much. So here we go. Let's take a look at it. What else is going on? Sadly, one of these things that apparently is going on. Here we go. Ha, ha, ha. DC is shitting the bed. I'm not kidding. It's on life support. Things are not looking good for DC Comics. They've canceled Teen Titans, Young Justice, Suicide Squad, Hawkman, and more. DC culling its line with the cancellation of multiple titles in November. Now, following the cancellations of Batgirl, Batman, The Outsiders, and Justice League Odyssey in October, more DC titles are scheduled to get the axe in November. DC just released November solicitations reveal that Teen Titans, Young Justice, Suicide Squad, Hawkman, John Constantine, Hellblazer are all ending in November with a cryptic message about Aquaman that makes that title's fate questionable. The Batman's Grave and Middlemen limited series will also reach their planned end in November. Now, what's going on is apparently business ain't going so well. As y'all know, even the DC channel has been shipping its shows over to HBO Max. And that is not a good sign, especially when, you're cutting your print titles. Now, what I'm referring to are print comics. We're not talking about like TV series or anything like that here, just to avoid confusion, because I know some folks think, no, they're not canceling Titans, the series, nothing like that. But it's very, very scary when print titles are getting shut down like this, especially during the time when you'd think that they'd be selling more, given the fact that we have so many, people, especially younger people, that are still stuck home right now due to the coronavirus and have been stuck home for quite a long time. Heck, I went back to work on May 18th. The only reason I remember that, as I tell people, is because that was the day, 40th anniversary of Mount St. Helens eruption. But there's kids who still have not been to school since way before then. And you'd think, okay, with young adults and all that being out there, they'd be wanting more stuff to read. But it seems like maybe this is just a sign of the times. Maybe more things are going online. It seems like people are more fascinated with sticking their head into a computer screen or staring into a phone or a tablet than they are picking up print media. But as, someone once said, yeah, sure, my comic book is printed on paper. The worst thing I'm risking is probably a paper cut. But guess what? When the batteries run out, which it don't on a comic book, you're boned and I can still read. So, but still, it's a sign of the time, sadly, that things aren't looking good for DC. And it's just amazing, too, because, Marvel, let's take a look at how DC Marvel fare like in other media. Marvel has been knocking it out of the parks at the theaters, as well as some DC titles, but not as many as Marvel's had in the last, decade or more. Whereas DC has been succeeding incredibly on television. Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D's now come to an end as of this week, so there goes Marvel's show, that the only one I can think of they have on at the time. So DC dominates television still, but things aren't looking good on their print media, okay? It's not a good scene, especially when you have this here where we have Jim Lee on the company's future. We are still in the business of publishing comics. He said there's no pencils down notice. It says the exec who weighs in on this week's major layoffs, Digital Comics interim editor-in-chiefs, and a new Batman look from John Ridley. And this is a guy who literally started, and rose through the ranks from the bottom. And Monday, Warner Media enacted deep and painful company-wide layoffs. DC, the home of heroes such as Batman and Wonder Woman, saw the scythe cut 20% of its staff, with many senior editors let go and a reorganization implemented that sent shockwaves through not just the company, but through the comic and DC fan community. Quote, "This week has been a really heavy, difficult time, not just for me, but for the entire organization," that Lee told The Hollywood Reporter. "We said goodbye to people that have been huge contributors and who have helped define and make DC what it is today," end quote. And it's just, kind of scary because it said right here, as soon as the layoffs news hit Monday, rumors began in earnest. AT&T, which had acquired Time Warner in 2018, to form Warner Media, wants out of the comics business. Other rumors suggest DC will no longer put out comics and that Lee would be demoted from his role as publisher and chief creative officer. And they go a bit more into this type of stuff. Once again, it's scary times apparently for DC Comics. And even though I'm not a major comic collector, a lot of those characters evolved to become movie heroes, TV heroes, and heroes that have just always stood out, in cartoons, animated movies, and things like that that I've seen. So while I'm not a big comic book collector and I don't have stacks of them hidden away somewhere in a cryo-controlled warehouse or anything like that, I'm still a fan of many, many DC characters on TV, film, and online and various other media. So it's still sad to me to see DC going down this path. And especially, you think during a time that, things would be buzzing, because what else do people have to do right now with the coronavirus running rampant? But at the same time, I just popped into my head, there's been a lot of unemployment across the board thanks to coronavirus. And I'm really hoping they find a cure to this sucker sooner or later. Speaking of that, Matt Reeves, the Batman movie, will explore the soul of Bruce Wayne. Now, this is the one that a lot of people are cringing about, especially when they found out Pattinson's taking the role. Folks, I'm one of you. My hands are still shaking like I'm on some kind of super form of meth or Jolt or whatever you want to call it. Like maybe like I've drank about 10, 2 liters of Jolt. Anybody remember Jolt Cola? Okay, I don't. But at the same time, I'm going to give the guy the benefit of the doubt, because I was one of those people that even when they cast Keaton as Batman, I was going, you got to be kidding. Beetlejuice is going to play Batman. Mr. Mom's going to play Batman. And then he knocked it out of the park. And I had the same misgivings when I heard Heath Ledger was going to play the Joker. And I was like, oh, come on, no way. And then he did that scene with the pencil trick, and bam, he had me right from that second on. A beautiful performance. So I'm going to give Pattinson the benefit of the doubt. I'm going to give these guys a chance. I'm going to watch this movie for myself, and then I'll make a decision on whether or not it sucked. The only thing that kind of worries me, though, even though it is badass looking, here's the muscle car Batman from the rear view. Now, there's some pictures of this drifting around. And from the front, it looks like a muscle car. But as you notice, it's a rear engine car, which is kind of innovative in a way, because you don't see rear engine muscle cars. It just wasn't done. But basically, it says right here, quote, Tomlin says, it's tough to talk about just because you want the movie to speak for itself. So he goes, it's early days. I think that, first of all, it's a younger version than most of the recent versions of Batman that we've seen. He goes, I think Matt Reeves is a filmmaker. And he says, if you look at any of his work, whether or not it's Let Me In or Cloverfield or Planet of the Apes movies, he's always coming from a point of emotion, and it's never a big action thing. It's always, what is the character's soul? So hopefully, if they can do this, I know as many of us who are sick and tired of seeing, Batman's origin story played out again, especially for us folks who already know that sad origin story. It was kind of weird me out to this day that Negan and Maggie once played, Bruce Wayne's parents, that guy from The Walking Dead and the other lady from The Walking Dead in that one flashback sequence. I can't remember which movie that was. I'm sorry. I think it was Justice League or one of them. Or was it Batman v Superman? It was one of those. Then, but, Jeffrey Dean Morgan and Lauren Cohen's what I'm going at. But okay, so hopefully, like I said, we're going to give them the benefit of the doubt. I'm going to watch it before I form an opinion. Then we'll see what goes from there. And here we go. Some good news. The Witcher filming has resumed for season 2. Henry Cavill gets back in the saddle as Netflix's most popular series to date and starts moving forward again. Production on season 2 of Netflix's fantasy series The Witcher has restarted in the UK. Filming was halted mid-March after the COVID-19 pandemic rolled across the globe. Now, this is why, let's jump over to that other format for a second. I'm still kind of hopeful about Doctor Who not being pushed back, but I'm still hearing it's pushed back to November for Series 13. So, but you've had all these other productions that are filming in the UK under COVID guidelines, yet the BBC sounds like they're not willing to do it. They're not willing, to put it forward. So, but still, it's nice to see The Witcher is at least back on schedule, because I'll tell you this right now, Henry Cavill, as far as I'm concerned, he beats the shit out of his performance in Superman as The Witcher. I see Henry Cavill as The Witcher more than I ever did as the Man of Steel. He is incredible in this role. It was an incredible first series. Great characters, hell of a lot of great plot twists. If they can keep this up through series 2, I'm definitely going to enjoy it as well. All right, and meanwhile, back to the ranch. So once again, looks like things at DC are shitting the bed, as I said. I'd even go as far as to say that DC's on life support. Just all those layoffs, whenever you have a sudden reorganization in a company, and Ford's been through it a bunch of times, but they've pushed through. Matter of fact, they're the only company that didn't take a government handout out of all the big three. We feel way back when. So, as much as I'd like to say, I'd be one of them guys that would say, the death knell's ringing on DC Comics. They've persevered before, and hopefully they'll do it again. Because even though I'm not a major comics guy, it's still a set of media that has helped guide so many young adults and entertain so many people across the years. That would be a shame to see it go extinct now. Don't let 2020 take another victim, for crying out loud. So take care of yourselves, folks. If you enjoyed this episode of Across the Continuum, please like, share, and subscribe. I'm only one man. I do not pay money to subscribe these things or promote these things. I rely on you, the viewer, to judge for yourself whether you've got quality entertainment, haven't been informed. Links to these articles will be below in the description box as usual, so you go read them for yourselves. So take care out there. Have a great night. See you on the flip side, kids. Dr. Freedom out.